all devotees. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय हो। हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय हो। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय हो। श्री गोविंद भाष्य की जय हो। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथावितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखावितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिने इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरद्विषे नमः। नमो ब्राह्मण देवाय गो ब्राह्मण हिताय च जगद्विताय कृष्णाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय प्रभुपाद की जय हो। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय प्रभुपाद की जय हो। Today I am doing Shri Guru Parampara by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yesterday, appearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ji. कृष्ण होइते चतुर्मुख होय कृष्ण सेवन्मुख ब्रह्मा होइते नारदेर मती नारद होइते व्यास मत्वा कहे व्यासदास पूर्ण प्रज्ञा पद्मनाभ गति नरहरि माधव वंशे अक्षोभ्य परमहंसे शिष्य बलि अंगीकार करे अक्षोभ्येर शिष्य जय तीर्थ नामे परिचय तारदासे ज्ञान सिंधु तरे जहाँ होय ते दयानिधि चारदास विद्यानिधि राजेंद्र होईल जहा ते जहार किंकर जय धर्म नामे परिचय परंपरा जन भाल माते जय जय धर्मदासे ख्याति श्री पुरुषोत्तमयति चाहते ब्रह्मण्य तीर्थ सूरी व्यास तीर्थ जारदास लक्ष्मीपति व्यासदास चाहते माधवेंद्र पुरी माधवेंद्र पुरीवर शिष्यवर श्री ईश्वर नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत विभू ईश्वर पुरी के धन्य करिलेला श्री चैतन्य जगत गुरु गौर महाप्रभु महाप्रभु श्री चैतन्य राधा कृष्ण नहे अन्य रूपानुग जनेर जीवन विश्वंभर प्रियंकर श्री स्वरूप दामोदर श्री गोस्वामी रूप सनातन रूप प्रिय महाजन जीवर गुणथहन चार प्रिय कवि कृष्ण दास कृष्णदास प्रियवर नरोत्तम सेवा पर चार पद विश्वनाथ आश विश्वनाथ भक्त साथ बलदेव जगन्नाथ तार प्रिय श्री भक्ति विनोद महाभागवतवर श्री गौर किशोरवर हरि भजन तेजार मोद इहार परमहंस गौरांगेर निज वंश तादेर चरणी मम गती आम्ही सेवा उदासीन नामे ते त्रिदंडी दीन श्री भक्ती सिद्धांत सरस्वती श्रीवास भानवीवरा सदा सेव्य सेवा परा ताहार दहित दास नाम तार प्रधान प्रचारक श्री भक्ति वेदांत नाम पतित जनिते दया धाम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री श्री गुरु परंपरा की जय हो। श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की जय हो। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय हो। हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, धन्यवाद, प्रणाम to all devotees. Thank you for so wonderful seva. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. So beautifully done. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Shri Prabhupada. Welcome back. So first, we offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and the Guru Parampara, finally the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh, तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप स्वयं रूप
तदामयहम्
या ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुन्मृतं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगणरघुनाथान् वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सगणललिता श्री विशाखावितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कंचन कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय श्री प्रभुपाद जय श्री भगवत्पाद गोविंदम आदि पुरुषम तमं भजामि। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम पदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। O most beneficent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna, and we offer respectful obeisance unto you. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagnahi Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Shru Medasam. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the names of Sri Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself, appearing uh, Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Now the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. Nana Sastra Vicharnaik Nipunau Shadadharma Samstapakau Loka Nama Hitakarinau Tribhuvane Manyau Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Anandena Mattaliko Vande Rup Sanatana Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami. You are very expert in studying all the revealed scriptures for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, uh, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Sri Radha and Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narom Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Jai Shri Govindamadi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. So, welcome back, everyone. Uh, Before I begin, I think we generally have recap. So, who is doing the recap?
Yes, Prabhu, I will do that.
Yeah, Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Let me share my screen. Hare Krishna dear all. Welcome to this recap session. So, in this prerequisite course for Govinda Bhashya, last week, His Grace Sarat Prabhuji, sorry, he covered lesson 4, where Adi Shankaracharya's Keval Advaita Vedanta philosophy was discussed in a high level preview. But we learned a lot, right? And then we'll go through the Q&A. Through the Q&A format, we'll probe into the learnings and rehash that. This Keval Advaita Vedanta is also called non-dualism or Mayavad philosophy. Mayavad philosophy, we often hear, that is the name I think mentioned by Srila Prabhupada and our former acharyas like Bhakti Vedanta. So they often use this. I used to be always confused, what does this Mayavad mean? But recently through this learnings, I got a better understanding, and let's go through that as well. So in the first slide here, where the high level fundamental concepts are explained. There are 6 philosophical foundations as we covered last time. Now here we can start through the Q&A means. Now uh, what is the difference or primary difference here in the concept of absolute truth, as explained on a primary level, as explained by Shankaracharya versus Buddhism? It's a very simple question, right? What is the primary difference in the concept of absolute truth or ultimate reality as explained by Shankaracharya versus Buddhism? Or start with Buddhism, and then how does Shankaracharya say it's not correct? Anybody like to take that?
Shunyavad, nothingness, and Brahman
Yes,
concept, 2 key concepts.
correct. Yes, Mataji. Thank you, Ashwamataji. So Buddhism says Shunyavad, which is nothingness, means it's a atheist philosophy, means it refutes the existence of God. It says there is nothing, whereas Shankaracharya comes here and establish Advaitavad Vedanta philosophy, and he says that Brahman is the ultimate reality. However, the concept of Brahman, as explained, is there are critics as well that will come to that, and Brahman is seen as the unchanging consciousness. Okay. So we start with the contrast or the difference as to what the problem or the description from Buddhist philosophy was, and now how Shankaracharya will refute that. So he started this with the way to establish your fact is one way is you find a very senior authority, challenge him, defeat him, and then everyone else will agree. So top-down approach is what they say. So I won't go through the repeat, but Shankaracharya, he defeated Mandan Mishra, and Prabhuji explained the past history of Mandan Mishra, his wife, who they were, and how they defeated. So that was covered very nicely. But here the question for our learning is, if anyone can highlight, what was the topic of debate here? What was the key topic of debate, and why was it important for us? Why was that? What was the importance of the victory over there? What was the key topic of the debate here? between Mandan Mishra and Shankaracharya? Anyone?
The rival philosophy, school of philosophy. Shankaracharya was debating on the symbolizing the type of Vedantic thoughts, whereas Manan Mishra was a version of Buddhist philosophy of that time.
Yes, Mataji, correct. So they were into like Mandan Mishra and his wife, they were into Buddhist, and then the key debate was establishing the Vedic authority again. So thank you, Mataji. Establishing the Vedic authority. So through this victory, then, as is mentioned here, Shankaracharya established the triumph of Vedic thought over the Buddhist philosophy at that time. And why was this important? Actually, he re-established the authority of Vedas, which is a seed or starting point. So he was keeping the ground, he was making the ground leveled or set up so that the future Vaishnava Acharyas can do the preaching, which is what happened as well. Right? So then next point here, nature of reality. I will not put it as a question, but key thing what we covered, Buddhists, they say non-essentialism or shunyavad, whereas Shankaracharya's Vishishta Advaita philosophy, it says about Advaita monism, which says Brahman is the ultimate reality and the Jivatmas are manifestation of the same reality, but they get covered by illusion or Maya, which we will again Q&A in detail in the next slide. So we covered the two themes. Now the concept of Maya, right? So here in how's Adi Shankaracharya ji explaining about Maya here? What is he saying? And he's giving a few examples as well. And what is the problem with that understanding? Well, let's start with
Material world is an illusion, and it's just like a mirage reveals water in the desert, but it is not a real. And other darkness, one may think that it is a rope. For a rope, they may think as a snake, but it is not true.
Correct. Thank you, Ashamataji. Yeah, so that's how Adi Shankaracharya explains the material. He creates that, mentions that this material world is illusion, and he gives this two example as Mataji explained. Thank you. And he says that true understanding will come from recognizing oneness with Brahman. And then it's like waking up from the dream and then understanding you're the truth. So that's the point. So now the critique here, again, the next slides also explain, is that the this particular illusion, or actually the Vaishnava philosophy here is, or what explained in Bhagavad Gita is, the material world is not an illusion. It is dukhalyam ashashvatam. It is temporary and miserable. I think Raksha Mataji, if you're around, you can give the shloka for that as well, right? Dukhalyam ashashvatam. So, okay. And then in this spiritual practice, in the final, now there's no question on this, but in the final phase, Adi Shankaracharya ji, he said that devotion to Krishna is the ultimate part. That also Prabhuji explained nicely. And there is this wonderful bhajan also he gave, Bhaja Govinda Mola. So that were his final teachings. They had emphasis on devotion. And he also says that through devotion, one can get through devotion we should surrender to the Lord, and Gopala was his favorite deity as well. And also I think I remember Prasad Prabhu, how you highlighted a lot of different good things, the establishment of temples, many temples Shankaracharya ji did. Okay. Now the concept of how did he, this theme, next theme here was, how did he refute the Shunyavad philosophy of Lord Buddha, or Buddhism's Shunyavad philosophy. So first theme here is existence versus non-existence, right? So here the question can be, right, what is the Shunyavad theory, and how is Shankaracharya ji defeating it? Uh, what does the Shunyava? I think we covered that, but just to rehash the important. What is the Shunyava theory meaning here?
Shunyava theory is nothingness.
Yes, yes. Like there's nothing, and eventually after we
Nothing
after
exists.
we purify ourselves, yes, man.
Nothing
Then
exists.
yeah, then
And
we free. Yeah,
we
yes.
feel, and the reality is one.
Correct.
That that's not perception. That the perception multiply arises from illusion.
Yes. So that is his refutation of the Shunyava theory, where it says that after the soul is purified and all, then there is nothing. It just becomes free and happy. After that, there's nothing. There's no rebirth, no concept of the creator and all. That's what uh, was covered in the Buddhism lecture, as covered by Mataji, I think, and how how Shankaracharya ji he refutes that. He says that there is reality is one which is Brahman, right, and everything is part and parcel of Brahman, but there is not that is not a complete understanding, and hence a bit incorrect, right? And then the theme nature of divinity, right? So yeah, again, no question on this, but just to rehash, like Shankaracharya ji, he maintains that Brahman is although formless and beyond, it is still, as per Shankaracharya teaching, Brahman is the source of Paramatma and Bhagwan. But then he also mentions about the personality of God, and he also refers uh, into the deity worship. But the concept is not completely given correctly, and that we'll see in the next slide how that is an incorrect explanation. And then about path to liberation, right? So here the point here that has been explained is there is one common thing between both Buddhism and one common thing between both Buddhism and Vishishta Advaita, this Shankaracharya philosophy, which is needed for liberation. What is that common theme?
Renunciation in the spiritual
Yes,
journey.
correct, correct, correct. That is the what do you call renunciation, right? Both of them they emphasize heavily on renunciation. However, in Buddhism, it is like through renunciation you purify, and in Shankaracharya's teaching, through renunciation, uh, you then engage in the devotional service. And actually, that's to some extent correct for Vaishnava philosophy as well. Like we have this mm, to do's and not to do. So this not to do's is not but nothing but more like a renunciation. But the goal there is to achieve Krishna prema. We we do not say that the Lord is impersonal. We say He's a person, a proper personality with all responsiveness and responding to us. But okay, and then finally restoration of Vedic understanding, right? So through his teachings, Shankaracharya ji he bridges this gap between two philosophies, right? That we saw. That is, he pulls out the positives as we saw that okay, Buddhism also mentions about renunciation and other aspects, but it disregards the Vedic scriptures and does not have a correct understanding of the Lord, which he bridges that. So again, no questions on that, just a revision aspect. So in conclusion, Shankaracharya ji re-established the authority of Veda by upholding the existence of ultimate reality, and then he re-established this whole Vedic system, yeah, through various debates, and also he made people realize that whatever the Vedas say, that's correct. But that was not a complete interpretation, and there was flaw or critique. That's what we'll read in the next session. So, what is the critique of this Mayavad philosophy? There are 7 themes over here. One is the misrepresentation of Brahman, denial of individuality, illusion and reality. We'll see each of these. The difference between worship and devotion, philosophical contradiction, and this was interesting, misrepresentation of scriptures, which can lead to a very like, total misunderstanding. However, Shankaracharya ji, as we discussed, also concluded his teachings and his intentions, culminating into bhakti, which was very interesting
May I
to us.
interrupt, Prabhuji? May I
Yes, yes,
interrupt here?
yes, Prabhu, yes.
So these 2 points we need to remember, okay? Because
Yes.
this is going to be the introductory parts when we begin Govinda Bhashya, okay? In what sense? See, there are two levels of misrepresentation, misinterpretation in the and this philosophy, Mayavada philosophy of Shankaracharya. As you can, the first element is this misinterpretation of Brahman, okay? And we are going to go, when we begin Govinda Bhashya, we will actually go many of it the same Upanishadic verses, okay? Svetasvatara Upanishad, Mandaka Upanishad, uh, uh, the various other Upanishads also, So how Brahman is defined in the Upanishads, and Shankaracharya and his followers took a selective portion of that, cherry picking, and that's how they, which suited their very purpose, okay? And other aspect of misinterpretation was done in the scriptures itself, Upanishad itself. So we will go the same Upanishadic verses that they quote, and what they missed or what they conveniently avoided, which did not support their contention, that will focus in the Govinda Bhashya. Okay, so remember these 2 points at this point, and then we'll revisit that. Haribol, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, in your next slides, you have also mentioned that in much deeper. So, but this is good thing to focus on. So, this is the misinterpretation, which is exactly what Prabhuji was mentioning. So, what they say, qualitylessness, right? So, this is the critique here. Now, the question for you all, the critique is that the followers of Adi Shankaracharya claim that Brahman is formless and colored, nirgun nirakar, which undermines the Vedic understanding, right? Which means it is not a correct Vedic understanding. What do they say? That Brahman is nirgun nirakar, formless, qualityless. What are the verses we have, which are here, which refute that understanding?
It describes Brahman as a source of all powers and bliss, and it highlights its blissful nature.
Yes, I think I have underlined the verses here, like Svatara Upanishad 3.90 and
Svetasvatara Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad,
yeah.
then Chandogya Upanishad, Manduka Upanishad, all these verses that are quoted and many more. We will go individually and analyze in great detail. See, there is the complexity and that we are going to come across when we do this Govinda Bhashya. Okay, so I am just trying to point out in great depth. We'll be going all these verses.
Yes, yeah, that's important to know. Yeah. Okay, and then the next. So this is theme by theme. What are the points which are the critique of Mayavad philosophy? Then there is the next is loss of personal identity. So what do Mayavadi says? That once the Maya curtain of Maya is removed, then there is no individuality. Like the soul loses its individuality. Now, what are the scriptures that refute this? Like I've just highlighted here in the slide also. What refutes or what defeats that philosophy? What defeats
But
that point?
the teachings of Bhagavad Gita
Correct. Correct. So,
in chapter 15:7.
15.7, and I have highlighted that verse also. Mama evamcha jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, manashashta indrayani, prakriti sthani kashati. So Lord Krishna says, living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental part. Because of conditioned life, they are struggling hard with six senses, which include mind. So he never says that they will merge and lose their identity. They are eternally part and parcel. So we always have the individuality with us. So that's how this argument is refuted. Then was it Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya? Means this material world is mithya or illusion. So that is what that they say. That is the third critique to the Mayavad philosophy. How is that refuted? Can someone please read and summarize?
The argument is that Brahman is true, but it cannot produce something false. And the material world, therefore, cannot simply be dismissed because of illusion, but must have the valid existence.
Correct. Correct. Thank you, Malki. That if Brahman is true, then
Jagat
how
is a
can...
temporary,
Yes.
Satya
Yes.
but temporary.
Correct. Dukhalem ashaswata. Temporary. Yeah. So it cannot be illusion as explained earlier. Okay. And then the third critique of Mayavad philosophy is they highlight about they undermine the practices of devotion as temporary practice. Right? What they say that this deity worship and all, they are just merely temporary steps. And when one realizes the identity as Brahman, then that is not needed, which is like one of the very, very uh, prominent aparad among the das aparad, right? We read that 10 or 12 offenses. That is a prominent offense to undermine the devotional service. So now the question for you, how is that critique challenge or falsified here? Okay, I will answer that then. Yeah, please. Yes, Mataji.
Like some of them followed it, but some of them still continued to engage in that. Like some of them did not follow, but some of them still continued to engage in that.
Yes. Well, it's
If they remove the significance of devotion, and
yes.
for
Well,
true liberation,
yeah,
they are
yeah,
essential for
uh,
truth,
yeah.
which is
That's
essential for.
correct. I think that's a correct understanding. The key answer is actually, as I realize as this, but key answer is in the next slide, which is sorry about that. The key answer is which is like eventually in the final teachings of Shankaracharya himself, he emphasizes on devotion. And that's what we're going to see. But yeah, this is also right. Bhakti uh, is the uh, is the start and the end is the part. Like Prabhupada says that I will chant now also, and then even after achieving liberation, I will be chanting. So, but yes, thank you, Mataji. Okay, then exactly what Prabhuji said now. The critique over here for Mayavad philosophy is selective interpretation or cherry picking, right? So this critique says that this Mayavad philosophy, they will uh, choose the selective things and reject the others. Right. So, for example, given is again, I don't have a question for this, but yeah, it's like Sarva Khalva Idam Brahma. So that particular text, how Shankaracharya ji or his followers, they have misinterpreted that. Actually, it means yes, everything is Brahman means everyone is part and parcel of the Lord, but here it has been misinterpreted as okay, everything is impersonal, right? So there is a tendency to favor a particular philosophical outlook through the word jugglery, right? So that, as Prabhuji said, we just have to keep in mind as we go through the Govinda Bhasha.
प्रभु यहाँ पे एक पॉइंट ऐसा आता है, आत्मा ही परमात्मा बन जाते हैं उनके लिए। जब वो इल्यूजन से दूर हो जाएंगे, माया से मुक्त हो जाएंगे, तो आत्मा बिकम अ परमात्मा।
Yeah,
दिस इज देयर गॉड।
correct. Thank you, brother. Yeah, that's an important misunderstanding we should know. Yeah. And the verse earlier also, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, that this Jivatma is my eternal part and parcel. Okay. And then finally, what do we understand from this discussion? What was Adi Shankaracharyaji's final and true mission here? Can someone summarize that?
शंकराचार्य जी ने ये फिलोसफी इसलिए दी क्योंकि वो वैदिक अथॉरिटी को एस्टैब्लिश करना चाहते थे। तो वो स्टार्टिंग का जो फेज ब्राह्मण उनके बारे में उन्होंने बताया कि एवरीथिंग इज अ ब्राह्मण.
Yes.
This is the main purpose of this philosophy.
Correct. Correct. And then he established the authority of Vedas, and eventually the other Acharya, Vaishnava Acharyas, they expanded on that how the Lord is, what the qualities are, and how can we achieve Him through devotional service. Okay, that ends this recap. Any other points or thoughts or questions?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी. प्रभु जी, ये जो ब्राह्मण का जो एस्पेक्ट है, वो जो डिवोटी जो है भगवान के, और जो स्क्रिप्चर्स को अच्छे से पढ़ता है, भागवतम की स्टडी करते हैं, वो अच्छे से समझ सकता है, क्योंकि उनको मालूम है ऑल थ्री फीचर्स ऑफ द लॉर्ड, थ्री मैनिफेस्टेशन, ब्राह्मण, परमात्मा और भगवान. मगर जिनको पता नहीं है सिर्फ, तो वो ब्राह्मण ब्राह्मण उसमें ही, मतलब उनको आगे वो सोच नहीं सकेंगे उसके बारे में.
Correct. Just like Prabhupada says, जैसे sun को realize करने के लिए भी, like you see the rays, the sun globe and the sun god. So that's the example also gives. So
यस
same way,
प्रभु जी.
yes. That's it. Vadanti tat tattvavidas. That means. Thank you, Mataji. Okay.
So basically, it is an
yes.
understanding that, like how devotees, they feel that the Brahman is the initial aspect of the Lord, followed by Paramatma, and the highest is Bhagwan. What they believe is, worshipping personal God is just a beginning into the devotional service, but for them, the highest is Brahman. So it is the opposite understanding, I guess.
Correct. Impersonalism and the merging into the
Yeah.
Brahman, losing one existence and merging one into the Brahman. That's.
Thank you,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
thank you.
That was
Mataji.
pranam.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So handing over to you, I think Saratabu. Saratabu, anything final points?
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, nicely done. I summarized the main aspect of it. Uh, thank you, Prabhuji, and thank you for the participants. So let's begin. So I'm first going to share my screen with you. All right. So do you see my screen? Everybody see my screen here?
Yes,
Prabhu.
yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good. So what before we start, let me make some few comments here. So this talk is basically to give an introductory uh, representation of the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, okay? So I'm not going to touch much upon the two atheistic philosophy, all right? And then atheistic philosophy is the platform from which Sankaracharya philosophy evolved. And Sharad Prabhuji very nicely explained the chronology and what was the particular, at that particular time, what was the issue at hand. That's why they came up with that kind of philosophies, okay? And good example is Shankaracharya. His philosophy is, of course, Mayavada philosophy. And he says that there is no any kind of a compromise when he said Kevala Advaitavada. Advaitavada means first we should understand, clear understanding of what is this Advaitavada philosophy. Advaita. Dvaita means something, just two aspects of it, right? Advaita means opposite of it. The word mono, single, it came from that analysis, all right? So what are the two aspects when we talk about duality? The two aspect is the Jiva Tattva, we, the living entities, and other is the supreme entity, the divine entity, what is termed as what we call absolute truth. And that absolute truth, Brahma eti, Paramatma eti, Shabda eti, so that has three levels of perception. They are non-different from each other. They are all aspects of the divinity, supreme being, but we perceive from three different angles, three different angle of vision. Okay. See, the Vaishnava perspective, this particular Brahman is the Brahma Jyoti, the impersonal effulgence of Lord Shri Krishna. Okay. And then there's a localized version, Paramatma situated in our heart of our thumb size, right? In the forearm form, the Chaturviha form, And then Bhagavan aspect in full, all six Bhagavana, six kinds of opulences. So that is the difference, main difference. So what we are going to do here, even though some initial slides are on uh, this two atheistic philosophy, Jainism and Buddhism, but I'm not going to talk much about it. Already we have heard the recapping sessions. The only reason I'm bringing that, because what I've developed, now this is personally I've developed, the philosophical spectrum. When we say spectrum, then there are two extreme ends, and in between there are intermediate kind of situations. Okay, so that's what I call spectrum. So talking about philosophical spectrum, at one end, total absolute atheism, and the other end is completely pure bhakti, and in between there are intermediates. Okay, so from that perspective, uh, I'll talk very briefly touch upon these two atheistic philosophy, which became the platform where Shankaracharya entered, because at the time of Buddhism, the complete Vedic authority was totally, completely rejected in Buddhism philosophy. And there was a reason for that, because in the name of Vedic authority, they were in excessive, completely excessive animal killing was in rampant. So he wanted to remove that. For that purpose, he rejected this kind of philosophy, Vedic philosophy, and there is no concept of absolute truth. In fact, that voidism was because of that. All right, and then there is a Jainism. There are great deal of similarity between Jainism and Buddhism. There are some differences are there nonetheless, but by and large, both reject Vedic authority, both reject the the personality of Godhead, some divinity they both reject, and both talk about personal development, morality, ethical morality, and so on like that, and they accept somebody who not as God but as a self-realized soul. In Jainism, these are Tirthankaras, okay, and in Buddhism, Lord Buddha himself, a self-enlightened soul, uh, and we went through this the four truth about that there is material world is nothing but suffering, and what is the cause of suffering? Something when you desire and desire remains unfulfilled, then the misery part comes into play. So there is a misery is the cause of our material existence, and the cause is desires. And how do you remove that? So reason for that, and what is the path out of it? Okay, so these are the four noble truths that we learn it in Buddhism. Okay? So the reason I'm bringing these two aspects is just to give you an example. The one extreme end of the spectrum and how gradually different philosophies evolved over time. These two atheistic philosophy led to the Adi Shankaracharya to propose his monism theory, and that monism theory became the platform from which the four Vaishnava philosophies evolved. Okay, so the difference between the four Vaishnava philosophies against this Mayavada philosophy and the atheism philosophy is much larger than the internal differences within the four Vaishnava philosophy. It's completely dwarfing that. Some minor differences are there, but there's nothing compared to what they have fundamental disagreement with the monism theory. Okay, and then we'll come to how these four Vaishnava philosophy led to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Achintya Bheda Abheda philosophy. Okay, and that Achintya Bheda Abheda philosophy, which will go deeper in that chapter, that we will do that, where Dashanama Tattva will come into play to properly understand what is this Achintya Bheda Abheda. And that is extremely important. So we will go through this Dasanama Tattva that we actually studied in the course we did, 48 lesson course we did long time back, of course, and then from that becomes the basis. How you see that sequentially the whole entire different shades of philosophy evolved. That is what I need you to really notice that, okay? What I call philosophical spectrum. Then that it's the stepping stone from which Govinda Bhashya philosophy evolved, okay? Because Govinda Bhashya philosophy is actually on this Vedanta Sutras. And as you just heard from Sanjeev Prabhuji, that they, and particularly uh, Shankaracharya philosophy, where the Vedic authority was re-established, which was very good. He did a great service to humanity, particularly in India. He is the one who drove away this atheistic philosophy of Buddhism. So coming back to that issue, the Achintya Bheda Abheda philosophy, that becomes the platform from which Govinda Bhashya came into play, And why Govinda Bhashya philosophy? Because we heard in the introduction that Vedanta Sutra is the one which this Adi Shankaracharya quoted that, because they say that Brahman, Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, formless, without any attributes, qualities, is Sarvasra, everything most powerful. And yet they say that same powerful Brahman came under the influence of Maya. See how they got entangled within their own philosophy. On one hand, they say Brahman is everything, most powerful. But Brahman came under the influence of Maya because of Ajnana, ignorance, okay, avidya. And that avidya, when that is removed by studying this very same Vedanta Sutras composed by Srila Vyasadeva, so they took that as the defense mechanism, and they're quoting that then one becomes enlightened. Avidya is removed, Vidya come into play because the Vedanta Sutra providing the Vidya, then you see Brahman is the reality. That is the basis of that thing. So, in order to correct that, this Gaudiya philosophy came into play, and it's a good thing, because Ramanandis had challenged the worshipping of Shri Radha Krishna deities in Jaipur, and they complained to the king of Jaipur that should not be there, because Gaudiya philosophy had no one produced a commentary on Vedanta Sutras, which is the most powerful in their viewpoint. So that was a blessing in disguise. Because of that criticism, ultimately, I don't want to repeat the whole story, but that was the reason which caused Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to send his disciple. His disciple was actually this great personality, Baldev Vidyabhushana, who was sent there and who actually prayed to Lord Govindaji himself, Lord Shri Krishna, that he's challenged and what kind of challenge he's facing. So it was Lord himself dictated to him the true interpretation of Srila Vyasadev's original intention of Vedanta Sutras. Okay, so this is the whole story is about that. We'll be going through the different stages of that philosophy in this, and that's why what I designed this prerequisite courses that you have to have in order to understand the Govinda Bhashya or Govinda Bhashya philosophy of these Vedanta Sutras. Okay, so let's with that. So what I intend to do today, because a lot of it is already known to you now. So I'm going to try to finish uh, in time. So including the discussion we might have, probably but not much discussion is going to be there because we already been discussing so much. So I want to save at least squeeze 30 minutes of today's time to have this our important meeting. And there is a sense of urgency is there why we should have, because I have already been preparing PowerPoints for Govinda Bhashya. I've already completed about 31 31 sutras, and that is only about 5% of the total sutras. And we need to go all the way up to 558 sutras, and we will individually go each and every sutras. Okay, so I want to discuss that thing. If we can squeeze 30 minutes out of it, all right? So let's zoom in this general introductory lesson for the introducing the four Vaishnava philosophies, and then talk about this philosophical spectrum. All right. So we are going to do it very quickly because I'm thinking most of it is already clear to you, and we will have individual lectures on each of the four Vaishnava philosophies. Okay, so that is the reason this is today. My job is to really introduce you to those four Vaishnava philosophy, in what context they developed, and what is that, how their positions in the philosophical spectrum. Okay, so in this particular slide, so let's see if we can squeeze in about 30 minutes for our this meeting to decide what ought to be our strategy, our approach in doing these PowerPoints for me uh, uh, of 558 sutras at the rate this particular design, as you see, very detailed. I give you in each of my PowerPoints, and there are reasons for that. Okay, why I did that all this time. I've been doing that, and we will talk about in the meeting itself, and why now it needed to have a kind of a different approach. Okay, very different approach, but not completely different what I was proposing you, just to give you bullet points. All right, uh, because after hearing, going through the feedbacks that I requested from all of you, and I'm very thankful all of you to share with me your feedback on that, and the sense what I'm getting is the real answer ought to be not the two extreme end, but somewhere in between, not geometrically centered, but somewhere where both aspects can be satisfied. Okay, that's the reason it has a considerable significance, importance, why we should have that meeting, and sooner the better. Okay, so this first slide. First of all, the Vaishnavism. What is Vaishnavism? Very name Vaishnavism means that we develop devotional service, we render devotional service for bodily senses to Lord Vishnu or Lord Shri Krishna. That is the definition of what is Vaishnavism. Okay. Traditional emphasizes the devotion to Lord Vishnu or Lord Shri Krishna. There is no difference between the two. Originating in ancient India, very early in this Christian era, and gaining prominence through medieval period with the Bhakti movement. And all this Bhakti movement started because of this two atheistic philosophy that led to monism theory of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, and that became the starting point of the necessity to develop or come up with these four Vaishnava philosophies. So central to this tradition are these four philosophical schools, each presenting a unique perspective. Now, mark these words that I use for a reason why I use those words, okay? A unique perspective on the nature of reality. Reality, what we are hinting, is this absolute truth, the divinity, right? Shankaracharya philosophy has no room for there is something like divinity in the sense, I'm talking about the Buddhism and Jainism has no particular aspect of it. They reject the very concept of absolute truth. Shankaracharya does have a concept of absolute truth, but they accept Brahman is everything, only one aspect of it, instead of the three aspects which is intermingled right within this Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So you need to understand that a finer point in that. So the nature of reality, so reality is absolute truth or divinity, right? In Shankaracharya's philosophy, there is no room, कोई इसकी गुंजाइश नहीं है इसमें कि जीव तत्व and Paramatma tattva, then he doesn't recognize. Same one tattva is there when come under the influence of Maya, then becomes Jiva Tattva, and same Jiva Tattva, when removes the ignorance, avidya, through this Vedanta Sutra, and then becomes the Supreme Tattva, what we call absolute truth, Brahman. So Brahman and Jiva Tattva, they don't differentiate, they're both one and the same, okay? It's the Vidya or Avidya makes the difference. And that is rejected by these four Vaishnava philosophies. And they do accept, although there are different shades, four different shades, and that we will see minor differences, and that's what called philosophical spectrum. So here, the relationship between the individual Jivatman and the supreme Upanishadic Brahman and the practice of devotional service is the communication between the two, okay? How we approach. So these schools stand in contrast to the impersonalism of Adi Shankaracharya, because what he termed is Advaita Vada philosophy. Remember I told you, Dvaita means there is a finite difference between Jiva Tattva and the Supreme, Paramatma, okay, or Bhagavan. In Mayavada philosophy, there is no room for that. Non-dualism, monism, and that is Kevala. Word Kevala is also very significant. He says absolute non-dualism. So there is no Jiva Tattva difference between Jiva Tattva and Paramatma Tattva. There's only one Tattva, and that's the avidya separates from that. when you get Vidya, then you get only one. Okay, that's so need to realize when he says Kevala means absolute. Kevala, the word Sanskrit word Kevala means only. There is no other interpretation. Adi Shankaracharya says that his original theory. Later on, of course, he, as you heard in recapping session by Sri Sanjeev Prabhuji, that later one, of course, he changed. He came to Bhakti Tattva. He himself was a great devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, but his philosophy is completely in divergence from what he's turned later on, and there was a reason for that. Uh, uh, Sharad Prabhuji actually discussed at great length what happened, why he was turned like that later, changed, which posits a formless and attributeless Brahman as the ultimate truth. Okay, and his followers kept harping and focus only on that aspect of it. Okay, in the name of Adi Shankaracharya, but the truth is somewhat different than that. However, it's very important for us to understand. What is that important to understand? The causal factors, how one led to another. Yeah? Behind the Vaishnava evolution. The whole four Vaishnava theories developed because of this monism theory. Okay? They wanted to reject that, which were essentially not only the two atheistic philosophies, because this monism theory developed by Adi Shankaracharya was because of this two atheistic philosophy. He wanted to reject that. That's why he suggested this monism theory. But then monism theory became the stepping stone that led to the four Vaishnava acharyas to propose their own philosophies. Okay? So you need to understand the chronology of or the evolution of these four Vaishnava theories. Okay? Important for you to remember that, understand that. It is also noteworthy the philosophical spectrum that I will introduce you in the second half of my talk. Okay, so I won't talk any more about Jainism and Buddhism. It's already been discussed in the recapping session that we already heard about it. Okay, but the important thing, I want you to remember that was the cause, because we are talking about causation. Okay, why Adi Shankaracharya philosophy of monism came into play. Right, he wanted to remove that atheistic viewpoint. So Shankaracharya is also, I already pointed out the main differences. So now let's come to the very basis of how these four Vaishnava philosophies developed. So this particular slide, especially these pictures, can tell you right away how these four philosophies evolved. Okay, so the basis for that again is this two atheistic philosophy, Buddhism and Jainism, right? That led to the proposal of Sri Adi Shankaracharya's monism theory. Okay, and that itself is the cause of these four Vaishnava philosophies. So, what you see the commonality in this four Vaishnava philosophy, there is the four great personalities who established that each of these four philosophies. Okay, and each of these four personalities, there was great acharya who also was involved in that, in developing the philosophy behind that. So um, we'll start. The picture is not given in the actual sequence in which it developed. We are going to talk about one end. When Shankaracharya says Keval Advaitvada, Keval means only non-dualism exists on the Brahman aspect of it, all right? So he came up that that's not a true non-dualism. The true non-dualism is the Shuddha Advaitavada, that's proposed by Lord Shiva, were established by Lord Shiva Sampradaya, and the Acharya is Lord Sri Vaishnava Vishnu Swami. Okay, he proposed that philosophy, but actually it was revived and further developed by Sri Vallabhacharya in his Pushti Sampradaya. Okay, and as you know, Pushti Sampradaya is a bhakti oriented, especially Vatsalya Rasa was the main thing. But that is what Vishnu Swami Acharya calls his philosophy as a Shuddha Advaita. The real pure Advaitavada, pure non dualism is the one uh, uh, by Sri Vishnu Swami. Okay, and then later revived, modified by Sri Vallabhacharya in his Pushta Sampradaya. So today I'm giving you just an overview of it, general introduction. Then we will actually have a fully devoted lecture on this each of these four philosophies. Okay, and that is a prerequisite for you to understand and get into the Govinda Bhashya course itself. So one end is this Shuddha Advaitavada philosophy of Vishnu Swami, okay, which was originally established by Lord Shiva himself. Okay, and Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava that you all remember. Don't forget that. Then Shuddha Advaitavada came into this Ramanujacharya called Vishishta Advaita Vada. Look at the word differences. Sanskrit word Visishta means again in response to the Adi Shankaracharya's Kevala Advaitavada philosophy, right? He says not just Kevala, not just only thing, but there is a distinctness of non-dualism theory. What could Visishta, distinct, or some special case that he's talking about here? Yes, there is a non-dualism quality-wise, as we all know, that the supreme divinity and the Jiva Tattva, in terms of Satchit Ananda, there is no difference. Both have the fundamental characteristic of Satchit Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. But the difference is the quantity. Okay, so on that aspect, Ramanujacharya calls some room for this significance of Jiva Tattva. Qualitatively, it is one and the same with Paramatma, with the divinity. And we are going to have a special lecture by Premaji, who is actually in the Sri Sampradaya. Sri Sampradaya means this Ramaji Acharya, that Sampradaya was actually established by Lakshmi Devi. Okay, so there is a worship of Lakshmi Narayana in that Sampradaya, and we are going to hear right now. Premaji is right there. Premaji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Prabhupada. So I've invited, and she very graciously accepted my invitation, and we are going to hear straight from one who is actually Sri Sampradaya, and we are going to be really very, very fortunate to hear straight from her. And I already shared the PowerPoint that she sent me, very, very colorful PowerPoints. All of you go through that. I think next week she will deliver the lecture on this Vishishta Advaita philosophy of Sri Ramanujacharya. Okay. So, Premaji, please forgive me. So I'm not going to talk much about, because we are going to hear from you directly. Shankarji also we are not going to talk about much about. So yeah, we were talking about here. So then came after this end of within the, first of all, the overall there is a philosophical spectrum. Two atheistic philosophy were completely one end, and then leading all the way to the bhakti. Okay, but within this four Vaishnava Sampradaya also there is a spectrum. Little bit differences are there. Okay, so one end of that Vaishnava Sampradaya this Shuddha Advaitavada, Visishta Advaitavada, and intermediate are the two philosophies of this Kumar Sampradaya. The Acharya is Nimbakacharya, all right? And then we have philosophy of Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya, that Sampradaya was established by Lord Brahma. And our Gaudiya Sampradaya is actually an offshoot of that. That's why we call Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And that was established by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, that smart thing he did, that he recognized the importance and significance of all four Vaishnava Sampradayas, okay? All Vaishnava philosophies. And he took two elements of each of them and developed his own Achintya Bheda, Abheda philosophy. And as I said before, you need to understand the significance of that Achintya Bheda through studying of the Dashamula Tattva. Okay, so we will go through that. And Prabhupada brought that philosophy of this Achintya Bheda Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy to the West. He did not present anything new. He just brought the original philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the West, and that we call ISKCON, right? So let's now dive into this four Vaishnava philosophy. And as I said, we are going to hear straight from Premaji's lotus mouth about this Vishishta philosophy. So I will not go at all in that philosophy, because very next week we are going to hear her lecture. And she already sent her PowerPoints, and I would strongly recommend for you to become familiarized. So then you'll get most out of it from her lecture. So let's talk about the other three philosophies. What are the minor differences? They're all, in many ways, they are all very similar. The major differences between monism theory, okay? But within themselves, these philosophies, there are minor differences are there. So let's go through them one by one of each of these three philosophies. And then how I'm going to connect with how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came up with this Achintya Veda Abheda philosophy. So, okay, this I'm going to skip because Premaji is going to talk about it. So Vishnu Swami's Shuddha Advaitavada philosophy. Shuddha means pure non-dualism philosophy. What's the overview of it? So this particular school founded by Sri Vishnu Swami, okay? But the Sampradaya itself was established, as I said before, by Lord Shiva. This is a purified form of non-dualism, as it ought to be, to differentiate from Kevala Advaitavada philosophy of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. So basically, that respects the individuality of the soul, which is totally rejected by Adi Shankaracharya, because Adi Shankaracharya's Kevala Advaitavada philosophy do not make any kind of differentiation between Jiva Tattva and Paramatma Tattva. They say only one Tattva exists, and that is Brahman. So there is a divine relationship between the two, emphasizes parental affection. Now, this is because I told you, Lord Vishnu Swami's philosophy, he is the one who established that, but not much is known about it. Most of it that we know about Shuddha Advaita philosophy is because of this Vallabhacharya, Sri Vallabhacharya, okay, through his Pushti Marga, which is strongly bhakti oriented, but in Vatsalya Rasa. So they worship baby Krishna mostly, okay, cultivating a nurturing relationship with God. So that is what you need to remember that. And its origin, as I told you before, is Rudra Sampradaya, Lord Shiva, descended from Lord Shiva, and framing its teaching within a broader spiritual lineage that we'll see that. So again, this is just introduction. we are going to have a special lecture on that, all right? So let's come back to the philosophical spectrum that I came up with that. I realized this is what the spectrum is there. So Ramanujacharya's Visishtadvaita, Visishta means distinct, specialized situation, qualified non-dualism, refuting both Buddhism and Adi Shankarachary's Kevala Dvaitavada. Distinction exists within the oneness of Brahman. So they do give a special, in fact, temple worship is the highlight. Sri Ramanujacharya established that bhakti, especially, and that also Dasya bhakti, particularly. So there is a distinction exists within that non-duality itself, as opposed to Shankaracharya. He left no room for compromise. That's why he said Kevala Advaitavada. But here it's called Vishishta Advaitavada, a distinct case where there is some consideration of Jivatattva also. And so that Premaji is going to talk in great detail, and it's a highly bhakti oriented sampradaya. And that was established, for you to remember, is Sri Lakshmi Devi. That's why it's also called Sri Sampradaya. So Vishnu Swami, and of course in parenthesis I put in Vallabhacharya, because he is the one who revived and actually expanded that philosophy through his Pushti Marga. Pushti, the word Sanskrit word Pushti means nourishment. So it's bhakti nourishment, and that's what they call Shuddha Advaitavada. The real non-dualism theory, what ought to be, that's what they're talking about. A purified form of non-dualism that respects, now note this word, respect the individuality of the Jivatmans. So not only they exist, there is a Jiva Tattva, but there is a special significance to that. And that's only because the bhakti segment is involved there. So Vallabhacharya's philosophy expands a purified non-dualism where the individual Jivatman and Lord Shri Krishna share an essential oneness. And again, I told you what is oneness in terms of oneness mean in terms of what? Satchit Ananda. Qualitatively, there is no difference. Okay, so it's non-dualism, but quantitatively, there is a dualism exists. Okay, let me stop here and take some questions if you have. Haribo. And as I made it very clear at the very start of my class, that today is just an introductory thing. We are going to go through this individual lectures on each of these four philosophies, okay? But what is its causation, how it's evolved, what are specific differences between the four philosophies, that's my only intention, my only objective for today's this general introductory class. All right, so ask me questions about that aspect of it. Haribol.
That schedule which was given in one of the slides, there
Yeah, it is an old slide. I think
old slide.
that.
Yes, there Friday it is actually Saturday.
Yeah, old slide. Because first we thought that Friday there are two lectures. The first lecture that's in India, it is in the night time, and Saturday morning and Saturday night. So that's why it's changed that. And this is this particular Govinda Bhashya, the entire course is highly philosophically very complex. That's the reason Sharad Prabhu came up with this suggestion. Why don't we do this as a because this morning lectures for me, for you it's a night. It's too much. Any other questions you have before I proceed?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mataji. First you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, like you said that Shri Sampradaya is Lakshmi Devi's Sampradaya, and
Yeah.
the Acharya is Ramanujacharya.
Yes.
Similarly, the for Shuddha Advaitavada, Vishnu Swami is the Acharya, and Lord Shiva is like
originator.
he started,
Yeah.
originator of the Sampradaya. So
Mhm.
is it, I don't know, but is it that Vishnu Swami is the incarnation of Lord Shiva? Is it something like that?
I'm not
Is
sure. I
there
don't think so. I don't think so. But Sharpraji, do you know anything about it?
No.
okay.
Right?
Okay, fine, Prabhuji. I just wanted to clear that.
No, not that I know of. If there's any connection. Any other question? Sanjeev Prabhuji, you had question, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Saptamaji,
Yes,
you want to
Prabhu.
say anything more? Did you ask
No,
anything more?
Prabhuji. No, Prabhuji.
All right. Sanjeev
Yes,
Prabhuji,
Prabhu.
you had
So,
question.
Vaishnavism, as I understand, is eternal, right? Like Krishna gives it to Brahma, Brahma gives it to
Yeah.
Narada. So, I am that puzzled and probably confused when you say that Vaishnavism was established in response to Buddhism by these acharyas.
It
It's
existed
not like
everywhere, but these four acharyas developed their specific philosophies
right.
on the wake of this monism theory.
Okay. So based on time, place it existed,
Yeah,
but based on
yeah,
time, they revived that for this
yeah.
philosophy. Okay.
The philosophy developed. Sampradaya was already there existing, but the philosophy itself came up in the light of that, okay?
Right.
In the wake of
Okay.
the monism theory.
Got
That
it.
is my understanding.
Yes.
Sharad Prabhuji, you want to add anything to that point that Sanjay Prabhu is raising? Sharad Prabhuji?
Nothing, Prabhuji.
All right, okay. So,
Thank you.
is there any other questions before I go further? Okay, none, then I'll proceed further. Okay, so then comes to this Nimbakacharya. And he's a very interesting name he called his philosophy, dualistic non-dualism. So he wants to have both different aspect of it together merged within each other. Okay, dualism and non-dualism, Advaitavada philosophy, but within that the element of dualism also exists. Okay, a little bit much more, as you can see, the spectrum develops more going towards bhakti platform itself. So what is the overview? Remember, this is the Nimbakacharya. It means this sampradaya was established by the four Kumaras. And we all know from the Bhagavatam, four Kumaras play a very, very important role. In fact, it was the four Kumaras who enlightened, taught tremendously on bhakti aspect of it to Narad Muni. Okay, and Narad Muni went further on that. The whole chapters, many chapters are there in Bhagavatam about that. The teachings of the four Kumaras. Founded by Nimbakacharya, this philosophy integrates. Integrates means what? What the word integrate means? Fusing together, all right? But the tone is still non-dualism. Okay? But the dualism aspect is integrated within it in a seamless manner. So it proceeds that while the individual soul, Jivatmans, and the Supreme are indeed distinct, okay, even the qualitatives are very similar, Satchit Ananda, but there's a distinctness that the Jivatmans are subordinate role play to the Supreme. So that's why the bhakti element comes into play. They also share a non-dual essence. Non-dual essence because of this similarity qualitatively, Satchit Ananda. To illustrate this concept, consider the sun. So this analogies help you to draw much better. If you say sun itself, okay, sunlight, and the individual rays, qualitatively there's not different, okay, but the quantitatively vast difference. Rays are just a small element part of it, but the sun itself is the origin of the sun rays. Similar, another example, another analogy is given: fire and spark. Spark is a little atomic element of the fire itself. Okay, the same way Jiva Tattva qualitatively is very similar. It's like sun and sun rays, you cannot distinguish. Fire and the spark, you cannot distinguish it. But the quantitatively, there's a great difference. So these two analogies makes it very clear. But what is this philosophy is all about? So it is non-dualism. All right. Qualitatively, they are one and the same, and yet there is an aspect of dualism with respect to the quantity. Who is the origin and who is coming from it? Okay. So Jiva Tattva comes from the origin, the Supreme Tattva. So to illustrate this, so these two analogies are given. Uh, as self-luminous, while the rays akin to the individual Atmans emanate from the or are inseparable from the sun itself, Paramatmans. Okay, so Atma and Paramatman aspect is introduced in this hypothesis, in this theory. So that's why it's called Dvaita Advaitavada, dualistic non-dualism. So two opposing elements are put together. So it was established by these four Kumaras. Focus on the personal relationship between the devotee and God. And remember, the four Kumaras originally were on completely not on Bhakti platform until we know the story from the Bhagavatam when they were visiting Vaikuntha planet to visit Lord Sri Narayana, Lord Sri Mahavishnu. They were stopped by the Dwarpalas, the doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, and they cursed them. Of course, Lord Vishnu came running after to save further damage to his devotees. And when he was running from his home without even any with naked shoe, without shoes, uh, when he came from distant, the aroma of the tulsi dala, tulsi was applied. Lord Vishnu always has tulsi on his lotus feet. So the aroma itself purified them and came to bhakti platform. So you need to understand from the Bhagavatam perspective also how these four. So they were on a Jnana platform. In fact, they're called Jnana Murtis, and then come to the bhakti platform later, So that's called unity and diversity. Even though two completely diverse paths, non-dualism, but there's unity in terms of the uh, duality. So dualistic non-duality emphasizes that sun, soul, and God are different yet inseparably connected. In them, one is the one, its origin, other is the product of that. Supreme versus the subordinate. Okay, so then comes to this philosophy called Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya is coming other extreme end of it. Now, he doesn't fuse non-duality at all. He talks about just duality itself, pure duality, as opposed to pure uh, Advaitavada philosophy of Vishnu Swami. So what is the overview? Again, I'm telling you, we are going to discuss in great length. The entire lesson is devoted to that, each of these four philosophies. So here today is we are just learning the highlights of it. Okay, recognize that. So I'm not going in great detail. Madhvacharya's philosophy is marked by its clear dualism. He makes no secret about it all, but the total bhakti oriented philosophy. Clear dualism. That means there is a subordinate Jiva Tattva and the Supreme Tattva, and the Jiva Tattva ought to be involved in bhakti process with the Supreme. Asserting a definitive distinction between the Jiva Tattva and the what we call Upanishadic Brahman Tattva. In contrast to Shankaracharya's Advaitavada philosophy, Kevala Advaitavada philosophy, so this philosophy, where the ultimate reality is one and formless, that's what Shankaracharya says. But this rapid comparison underscores the unique logic of Madhvacharya's dualism theory. And here is the main aspect that differentiate his philosophy from other philosophies. So there are 5 aspects of it. The highlights, what is called Pancha Bheda. Bheda means differences. The 5 kinds of differences are there. First and foremost difference is the Jiva Tattva and Paramatma Tattva. Paramatma Tattva is the supreme, Jiva Tattva is the subordinate. Okay. And then there's a difference. So, absolute truth that we saw, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan Tattva is there. But then, so there is a interrelationship between the Paramatman, Bhagavan, and Jiva Tattva, who is the devotee. Okay. But then there is also third component we should not forget about it. Is the material world. Adi Shankaracharya says the material world is just illusion, not reality. But Vaishnava Sampradaya said, no, there is a reality that this material world does exist in real sense, but it is repeatedly created, maintained, and destroyed. So it's of a temporary nature. So here also Madhvacharya says that there is indeed a difference between Brahman and Prakriti. Prakriti is the material nature. Material nature, don't forget, material nature is eternal. But the material world is created and destroyed. And the third aspect is that there's a difference between the Jiva Tattvas themselves also. Individual Jiva Tattva is not like homogeneous. Same Atman, one Atman and another Atman is not something that is similar. They're distinct, different, because when it becomes Jivatman, each Atman carries its own karmic bondage, karmic bond, karmic baggage. So that's why there's a difference, one Jiva Tattva from other Jiva Tattva. So that differentiation is noticed by Madhvacharya. So individual Jivatman and other Jivatman, there is a difference. Then there is an individual Jivatman and the matter, material nature, material world, Prakriti. This is physical body, which is composed of the 3 modes of material nature. So that way also he differentiates the difference. All right. So difference between the Jiva Tattva itself, different Jiva Tattvas, the difference between the Jiva Tattva and his physical body or the environment, which is Prakriti, material nature. So there is a differentiation. So one is Chit, means alive with consciousness, where the material world, material nature is unconscious, without devoid of consciousness, where Jiva Tattva is conscious entity. And then within this material world is also there's a difference there, material nature, matter and other matters. One physical body to another physical body is different, and we all know why. Because the 3 modes of material nature is mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. They are 3 mixed in different proportion, and that brings 3 into 3 into 9, 9 into 9. So it exponentially it goes millions of fold like that, basically, So that's why the heterogeneity, the complexity increases because the three modes in different proportions mix each other. And as a result, countless Jiva Tattvas are there. Countless different material worlds are also there. All these 14 planetary systems are also based on that. Satyaloka is purely in the mode of Satyaguna, mode of pure goodness. Okay, whereas this Mrityu is mixed of these three modes, but largely it is the mode of passion and ignorance. So different worlds are also differentiated depending on what proportion the three modes are mixed together. So in stark contrast, Shankaracharya's philosophy centers on non-difference, where the ultimate reality, Brahman, is one and formless. This rapid comparison underscores the unique logic of Madhvacharya's dualism. So there's a fundamental difference between Shankaracharya's Kevala Advaitavada philosophy, and here it is absolute dualism. There's an absolute finite distinction between Jiva Tattva and the Supreme Tattva, Paramatman Tattva. Okay, so that dualism is the main aspect he is stressing, emphasizing that. So that what it makes, he does not make any kind of mixing duality versus non-duality as the other Vaishnava Sampradayas are making. So that's why Madhvacharya Sampradaya is more akin, much closer to our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. Right? Furthermore, in Mayavada doctrine, the very concept of Paramatma is non-existent. We know that. Shankaracharya's original philosophy does not make any mention at all that there is a Jivatman or there is a Paramatman. He calls only one Brahman. That Brahman itself comes under the influence of Maya Devi, then becomes Jiva Tattva because of the Agyana, ignorance. When that Jiva Tattva itself gets knowledgeable, enlightened because of the Vedanta Sutras, and then it becomes Brahman. So you see that there's no room for this dualism exist in Kevala Advaitavada philosophy, where here in this philosophy of Madhvacharya, there's an absolute significance difference between the two. One is subordinate to other. So there's a unity and diversity in purified dualism. Unity in the sense qualitatively, okay, Satchit Ananda, but definitely in quantity we are atomic size, whereas one is so atomic size, and the supreme is Vibhu, unlimited. Emphasize that Atman and Paramatman are eternally different, and that sloka, famous sloka in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, eternally separate part and parcel of the Supreme, the living entities, eternally separated. But they are part and parcel of the Supreme. So it's fostering, supporting the unique understanding of the divine love and service in terms of devotional service. Okay. So this one is why it is much closer, why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adopted Madhvacharya philosophy greatly when he developed this Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we'll see, he took best of all the worlds, all the four worlds. So internal community, commonality and contrast exists among four Vaishnava Sampradayas. There's a personal aspect of the deity. While all four schools affirm Krishna or Vishnu as the personal and supreme being, Adi Shankaracharya's teaching completely differentiates itself from the four Vaishnava philosophy. That you must notice that within the four Vaishnava philosophy, there are differences, but they are comparatively much minor related to the Advaitavada philosophy, Keval Advaitavada philosophy of Shankaracharya. So within four philosophies, there are differences, what we call nuanced differences. Some distinctions are there that I just highlighted it in a broader aspect. Specifically, in a more detail, we'll go through that when we discuss each of the philosophies in its own perspective. Well, all schools affirm a personal God. So that's why the bhakti element comes into play. When we accept Brahman is not just Nirguna Nirakara, but it has a form and it has qualities, and Brahman plays the role of Paramatman and Bhagavan aspects of it. There is where the bhakti elements enters into play. They differ in their understanding of the relationship between Jivatman and Upanishadic Brahman. That's the only way the four sampradayas differ from each other in that aspect of it. Okay, the internal commonality and contrast is much more pronounced here. So there's here's a nice analogy is given like a dial. Say, like say you have microwave oven. Some of you might have, or nowadays this new thing came up in the last few years. It's called this. We just bought recently. That's also a dial. So the dial you move from one extreme end to other end. So there are different notches on this dial. So in that kind of analogy, this is explained. Imagine a devotional dial. One aspect of dial starts from zero, going to let's say 100% in terms of bhakti and so on like that. In terms of supremacy versus subordinate, that. So that is the kind of dial where each philosophical school represents a notch on this continuum. So that's why I call philosophical spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, complete atheism, total, Keval, absolute non-duality. Then the four Vaishnava sampradayas differ in degree. One coming from straight the non-dualism, another aspect of it going all the way pure non-dualism. Okay? And then how the best of the four worlds came up with this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achidya Bheda Bheda Tattva. And then completely the bhakti platform and the Vedanta Sutra, its very basis of it. So this is a wide spectrum. It's kind of like a dial. You switch notch by notch from left to the right. Push the dial towards a stronger dualistic stance, and you encounter Madhvacharya's completely right hand side, from the left to right. So boldly asserting the distinctiveness between the divine and Jivatman, clear and finite difference between Jivatattva and Paramatma, the supreme, and he has a form and who is the supreme, and there is a finite relationship between Jivat. We have a finite relationship between us and Bhagavan, who has a form, and we are subordinate, we are dependent on his mercy. And we communicate through our bhakti process, communicate with Bhagavan. And there is an incredible transformative potency of this bhakti process, how completely one changes when one comes to bhakti platform. So, by the way, okay, we'll discuss later. In contrast, Nimakacharya's Dvaita Advaita philosophy and Vishnu Swami's Suddha Advaitavada philosophy occupies intermediate positions in between the wide spectrum within the four Vaishnava philosophies. All right. So, what are the conclusions? These four schools of Vaishnava philosophy collectively illuminate, enlighten the richness of devotion, devotional thought within the tradition, each contributing unique insights into the nature of the divinity, varying degree. Okay, the Jivatman and the path of devotion, coming from the non-dualistic dualism, okay, non-dualistic their aspect, and coming to the pure dualism of Madhvacharya. So their shared commitment to a personal. So all four sampradayas do accept a personal aspect of the Supreme God. All four aspects, they do consider that. But the difference into the degree by which the individual Jiva Tattva vis-a-vis the Supreme Tattva, that's where the minor differences are there. Individually, one may reflect on these varied perspectives. Let's consider this, where on this devotional path one finds resonance. Means, in other words, if you talk about bhakti platform, in what way we can resonate ourselves in our eternal relationship with the Supreme. Okay, more and more towards this clear distinctness, clear duality, the more bhakti platform comes a central role in that. Okay, as long as we hung up on this Advaitavada philosophy, where they say that God has no form. When the God has no form, then where the bhakti element comes into play? Bhakti element will come into play only when we accept that God has a personal form. He is the supreme conscious entity, and we have eternal relationship that will develop only when we accept the dualistic aspect. Dualistic aspect means there are differences between Jiva Tattva and Paramatma Tattva. And Paramatma has a form, and we have relationship by rendering bhakti. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. And the great transformative potential of the bhakti, how the undesirable elements within us can be dissipated and develop a desirable characteristics when we come to bhakti platform. There is a highlight, and that comes into play when we accept the concept of duality, concept of distinct difference between us as Jiva Tattva and the Supreme Tattva. That is what is brought about in this aspect of it. So there's a clearly what I think I've made a case, but there's a philosophical spectrum exists. Two wide ends, two extreme ends, and then there are intermediate in between. At varying degree of this duality versus non-duality. Nimbakacharya's dualistic refuting both, Buddhism that we already accepted, we already discussed about it at great length. Madhvacharya, a purified form of non-dualism to respect the individuality of Jiva Tattva, that there is a Jiva Tattva, okay, to make a distinction between the Adi Sankaracharya's monism theory, which they make no difference at all between Jiva Tattva and Paramatma, they accept only one Tattva exists. Okay? From there, in Vaishnava philosophies, all four Vaishnava philosophies accept there is a Jiva Tattva and the Supreme Paramatma Tattva. Madhvacharya emphasized bhakti as the means to reconnect with God, with the Supreme Bhagavan, who has a personal form. So Prabhupada here, I put this slide different from the original which I shared with you. Okay, this slide brings it very clearly. So he first pointed out the importance of why the important element of these four Vaishnava commentaries. four Vaishnava philosophies. These commentaries emphasize the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the living entities, Jiva Tattvas, with the Lord as the master and we are his servants. Okay, and we have that eternal relationship with that. And Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhut Sanatana. And then Prabhupada makes very clearly criticizes this monism theory of Shankaracharya, and that Mayavad philosophy is very, very dangerous because they don't accept at all personal aspect of the absolute truth. So where does the bhakti come? Bhakti doesn't come in that at all at that platform. So that completely destroys the bhakti element. That's why we should be very, very careful. Uh, then these four Vaishnava philosophies, internal differences are there, but they are minor. Coming from Vishnu Swami Shuddha Advaita philosophy and coming all the way to this Shuddha Dvaita philosophy of Madhvacharya. And in two intermediates are this Visishta Advaita Vada and Dvaita, dualistic non-dualism. So these two sampradayas, they both want to accept certain aspect of both. Okay, and they justify their philosophies. But nonetheless, all four Vaishnava philosophy, they worship Lord Vishnu or Lord Shri Krishna, and the bhakti element is there in all four. The nature of selfless bhakti. Advocates studying these commentaries to gain a proper understanding of Vedanta philosophy. Why I call this prerequisite, this knowledge, because of that. Because Govinda Bhashya that we are going to hear from purely bhakti oriented, the same kind of Upanishadic verses in terms of Brahman aspect of it, and how that Brahman has a form that is plays a central role when we talk about bhakti. Unless and until we accept that the absolute truth has a personal form, bhakti does not enter in the picture at all. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Achinta Bheda Abheda Tattva, the inconceivable oneness and difference. So what he did, philosophically integrate the two principles of each of these four Vaishnava philosophies. Okay? And thereby Mahaprabhu enriched his own doctrine of Achintya Bheda Abheda. So the simultaneous oneness and difference. So he did not totally reject Advaitavada philosophy at all, At the same time, he accepted in great preference to this Dvaita philosophy also. That's why Achintya Bheda Bheda is much more closer to Madhvacharya's philosophy, okay, dualistic aspect of it. So this synthesis, and we will say in what aspect Lord accepted, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted even the some elements of Advaitavada philosophy, but in a very limited sense, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself also highly critical of the monism theory. So Srila Baladev, so from there Achintya Veda philosophy will jump into this Govinda Bhashya. So how methodically they are all interconnected. And that's why it is so important, crucially important to know all the basic elements of for Vaishnava philosophy if we want to understand Govinda Bhashya commentary. Okay. So Govinda Bhashya commentary serves as a logical tool for if you want to understand Vedanta Sutras, the original Vedanta Sutra composed by Srila Vyasadeva, because it is completely given a twisted kind of interpretation by the Mayavadi philosophers. They do accept the authority of the Vedanta Sutra, but they misinterpret Vedanta Sutras, and that we will actually see how it is brought out in Govinda Bhashya Okay, same Upanishadic verses, Brahman aspect of it. Same Brahman can indeed and that one of the prerequisite courses, what the Upanishad teach us, that point was well discussed, So this commentary was written in response to criticisms, affirming the authenticity of the Gaudiya Vaishnava. So Govinda Bhashya commentary firmly established the validity of Gaudiya Sampradaya, okay, as a criteria that was set by the Ramanandis, okay, and Ramanandis were clearly impressed by that. In fact, they offered to become his disciple, but very respectfully, Baldev Vidyabhushanji rejected that because he recognized, and as well as it was recognized as Chaitanya Prabhu himself, the great virtues of Sri Sampradaya, Ramananda Charya's Sampradaya. That's why I did not want to create a friction between us and them. And myself and Brahmaji, as I got to know more and more about her, in the last few months, we came very, very close, much, much closer to each other. We know where we each stand, and so much similarities are there between us in our thinking than the minor differences that might exist. But so far as I am concerned, she's completely on a bhakti platform. She's fully supported, fully supports the basic tenets of our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And she has tremendous exposure to both aspects of it. So true understanding of the Vedanta Sutras comes from this divine revelation. And that revelation, don't forget, it was made by Lord Sri Krishna himself as Govindaji, who dictated that commentary, Govinda Bhashya commentary. That's why it's called Baldev Vidyabhushanji did not take any credit at all. He named that philosophy as Govinda Bhashya because it was dictated to him in his dream by Lord Sri Govinda himself. So we have to really recognize the great validity and great critical importance of understanding the Vedanta Sutra in its true sense, true reality that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized when he had differences, opinions with the Mayavadis at the time when he visited Banaras, Varanasi. Banarasa is the kind of westernized name. The true name of that city is Varanasi. And it's been known since the Vedic times. Okay. So this is the philosophical spectrum. Look at the one end is pure this atheism theory of this Jainism, Buddhism, totally reject all this bhakti and everything. Coming all the way to the right side, other end is pure bhakti platform. And in between this intermediate, these four Vaishnava philosophies are there. Okay. So that's about it I wanted to say. Thank you very much for the attention. It has taken a full time now. I was trying to extract time, but it doesn't look like we are going to get. Okay, let's. It's open for discussion. Haribol. Thank you. So we are going to hear next week from Premaji about Vishishta Advaita philosophy of Sri Ramanujacharya. Okay, so don't miss it. And I would recommend highly to become familiarized with the PowerPoint she shared with us. Any questions, comments?
These four philosophies, Vaishnava philosophies, there are very little differences, but broader perspective, they are all the same.
Exactly. And both four philosophies recommend bhakti process. But the duality and non-duality that aspect is varying degrees there, but in a philosophical is not much difference, right? What they call non-duality in terms of Sat Chit Ananda. But otherwise, they do accept Jiva Tattva as a subordinate role playing to the Supreme Tattva. That you notice all four Vaishnava Sampradayas. And remember, it was established by who? Lakshmi Devi, who constantly serves Lord Narayana. And then four Kumaras, who are great devotees and great knowledgeable about Bhakti Tattva. Okay. And Vallabhacharya, Vatsalya Rasa. So really, and Madhvacharya, of course, the closest to our Sampradaya. That's why our Sampradaya is called Brahma, because it is established by Lord Brahma, who is also a great devotee of the Lord. Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, what is called. ISKCON is a small sub branch of it. Anything you want to add, Sharad Prabhuji, to what I just spoke?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Oh, Raksha
Prabhuji,
Mataji,
so
yes.
wonderful class, Prabhuji. प्रभुजी
Thank you.
मध्वाचार्य के जो पंचभेद है वो
हाँ।
एक बार वापस सोल टू सोल मैटर
तो फिर से हम लोग
हाँ,
डिस्कस
प्रभु।
करेंगे जब पूरा लेक्चर उस पे होगा ना।
ओके
तो
ओके प्रभु
वो
जी
पंच तत्व क्या है? पंच भेद is basically that there is a gulf of difference between Jiva Tattva and Supreme Tattva. Okay. Then there is a difference between the jivas, different jivas. Then there is a difference between jivas and the material world, Prakriti. And then there is even Prakriti, material nature, material worlds. Also, there are differences because of the three gunas. So that way he differentiates these 5 levels of differences. Madhvacharya. But we'll go in details, devoted each a separate lecture
यस
for that.
प्रभु जी यस प्रभु जी ओके प्रभु जी
So, Prabhuji, in essence, the four sampradayas are coming from Lord Shiva, Lakshmi Ji, four Kumaras, and Lord Brahma, right?
Yes, and all 4 of them are great devotees of the Lord.
Yeah. And
And
ours
devotion
is
comes-
Brahma Madhava Sampradaya, like a combination of.
Exactly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the certain number, 2 elements, as
two
it
principles
said,
two principles
two
from each
principles from
sampradaya
each of the 4 sampradayas. So ours is really a combination of the best of the whole 4 worlds. And he combined that we will learn in that final lecture on that this prerequisite course, how it combines then and extends into Govinda Bhashya. Okay. And in that connection, it's very important for us to learn about or revisit this Dasha Mula Tattva. Very important. So we'll be spending a finite degree of our devotion to that, understanding Dasha Mula Tattva. Then we'll truly understand what is this Achintya Veda Veda Abheda philosophy, okay? And that has a direct relevance when we talk about understanding the Vedanta Sutras in the commentary of Govinda Bhashya commentary. Haribo, any other questions, comments?
The biggest,
प्रभु that's a मूल तत्व we studied in Jaiva Dharma na प्रभु जी
Yes, exactly. And there we did it at great length, great detail.
yes प्रभु
Each
जी
of the Dasa Tattvas we discussed at great length. 48 lessons were there in that course. But here we will not go that great details. We will restrict to its relevance to what is at stake. What is at stake? Okay. To understand the basis of this Achintya Veda Abheda philosophy. Unless we understand Dasa Tattva, we cannot realize the significance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Dhanas Pranam Prabhu, very deep class, and we are very interesting. Lot more to come. So my question is about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achintya Bheda Bheda and Madhvacharya's, you said dualistic, was that dualistic?
No, pure dualism.
Uh, is there a
You're
difference
talking
between that?
Madhvacharya, you're talking about Madhvacharya, you're talking about it's a completely pure dualism.
Yeah. Is there a difference
With
between
the
that? Because they seem to be same, right? More or less.
very different, very little minor differences are there.
Right.
Other two sampradayas in between intermediate, they do accept certain aspect of Advaitavada philosophy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not forget about that. Remember, he did take some aspect of Advaita philosophy, but not the Mayavadi philosophy. Some distinct differences, as in Visishta Advaita philosophy, you will see a bhakti aspect of it. So they do accept a superior entity in Brahman versus our Jiva Tattva. They are not on the same platform as the Mayavadi philosophies talk about. Mayavadis don't even make any distinction at all, Brahman and Jiva Tattva. They don't talk about Jiva Tattva at all. They talk about only Brahman.
I see. Thank you, Prabhu. Clear.
Yes. Okay. Any other? Premaji, you want to make any comments? Are you there?
No, she is not there. She is logged out.
Okay, she left. Yeah. Okay, then since it's only left 15-20 minutes remaining, unless there are any questions on this aspect, I wanted to let's talk about 15-20 minutes remaining. I want to talk about this because there's a certain degree of urgency is there. Because I'm already making PowerPoints, and I must go on. Every single day plays a critical role in my life. Okay, right now, I cannot wait, and I recognize there's a high time we need to do a little bit differently than we are used to it. Okay, and I sent you that little in the text message, and my text messages are usually much more extensive, and I apologize for that. Um, the main aspect which I want to talk about, if you notice that up until now, my PowerPoints are very, very descriptive. Okay, and there's a reason for that. There's a virtue for that, because at the time when I started Bhagavatam and all this thing, um, many of you were not totally an advanced stage. We have a mixed uh, nature of our audience, our participants. Okay, some are at a very, very high level, you know, and some of are not, you know. But at least the my core team that I assembled, all of you, I'm very happy that all of you made tremendous progress in my investment in letting you to give classes yourself, because I realized personally in my own life, teaching is the best mode to learn any subject. Because when you need to teach, you need to study. All right. So that's why I force all of you to participate in giving classes. And obviously, you can see the result. Not only that, but even this recapping element that we introduced, we are also training the general participants to take active part in this discussion. So you see the how teaching helps. Okay. So at that point in this development, it was well justified the descriptive way I was giving my PowerPoints. Okay. So that is it's a virtue, right? But now I realize its limitations. I cannot keep on doing this such descriptive. So the other virtue is that, let me point out before I go, the negative aspect of it. The other positive aspect of it, that when you receive this, my PowerPoints, the degree to which I elaborate each of the elements of PowerPoints, that not only after the lecture is over, but even the months might have elapsed, you can still go back. And when you refer and study my PowerPoints, you will be able to get a fairly good exposure, understand that, right? As opposed to if I just had given as just a bullet points, you'll remember as long as the lecture is there. But when the lecture is over and a few days elapse, then it will be very difficult from just bullet points to understand what transpired, unless you took a time and spend some efforts to go and studying on your own. Okay. So there I discussed both positive and negative elements of this descriptive way. It has definitely, certainly well recognized positive elements are there, that even after the lecture is over and even a few months elapsed, you can still go back and just studying my PowerPoints, you can get the central message of a particular theory or philosophy. Okay. Now I'm beginning to realize the limitations of that. I cannot afford to give you such descriptive way in my PowerPoints because of the sheer size, 558 sutras. And I recognize the significance and critical importance of studying all the sutras individually, as opposed to Bhagavatam classes, which I took a group of verses and then discuss at philosophical elements, right? But now we cannot do that because I recognize each and every sutra has a deep philosophy embedded within it. So we do need to study individual sutras. And when we talk about 558 sutras, the other limiting elements, when I describe in great details each of the elements in my PowerPoints, the slides, number of slides, I try my best, but still within about 20, 25 slides was the limit, right? I could manage, but not anymore in doing Govinda Bhashya Sutras. Okay. And we recognize the upper limit of number of lessons. Okay. 48 lesson was my uppermost limit. So within 48 lessons, I had to compress all 558 sutras. So when I was doing this thing, the first 31 sutras that I just completed, the number of slides kept on increasing. And when it started going beyond 25 slides in a single lesson, then immediately the red bulb started flashing in my mind. How in the world I'm going to, and more than me, how in the world many of you I have assigned particular sutras, group of sutras, how you will be able to discuss a deep philosophy embedded in more than 25 slides in a given 1 hour class. Do you recognize what that I'm talking about now, everybody?
Yes, yes, Prabhupada.
I cannot afford to give you such descriptive PowerPoints now anymore, any longer. Okay? Because I need to keep the number of slides within something that I can deal, or any of you can deal within a 1 hour class, especially when the philosophy is such dense, you know. So, and the same time that I also recognize, judging from the feedbacks I received thus far, that we need to compromise. First, I thought I'll just give you a bullets, not even full sentence, not verbs, just like sutras. Okay. I thought of doing that. In fact, I developed my first draft when I was doing this sutras number 24 to 31. Um, and that struck me that even bullets, because once the lecture is over, in the lecture I can do that, all right? And some of you can do it, uh, Sharad Prabhuji. But even with the great admirable progress you made, Sabata Mataji, Sanjeev Prabhuji, and some others, um, rather Vinod Prabhuji, may do something, but if the slide number goes beyond 25 and to do it in this highly constrictive time limit, it's going to be next impossible. So what I'm trying to give you a sense that I'll have to adopt something intermediate. Some sutras I will discuss just as bullet points. Okay. Majority of the sutras will be like that. But where there is a complex philosophies involved, I have to describe in a descriptive manner. So I will do a middle of approach. Okay. Bullet form on one hand and a completely descriptive, just as I had been doing so far, but somewhere in between. So that is my proposal. What do you think about it?
Yes, so
So
that sounds best of
those
way.
sutras,
That
those
sounds
sutras
best of
which involves a kind of difficult philosophy that I have to explain in a bit more descriptive way. Okay? But majority of the sutras, I can just give you bullet forms. Uh, so once the lecture is over, you need to go back and really do your homework study also, otherwise you'll forget. And after the few weeks elapsed, you'll not be able to, you'll forget everything. But if in a descriptive way, you can still go back and study it on your own. Okay. So I have to make a compromise out of great reluctance, because I cannot continue with that degree of elaboration and still do 558 sutras and still compress in 48 lessons, and each lesson is no more than 1 hour. Am I making any sense to all of you? You see the realities that I'm finding myself here.
yeah, yes,
Okay.
so this is the best approach, I think.
Yes,
Though
Prabhuji, I understand this is that's a best approach.
it'll still be a bit taxing on you.
So those of
That is,
you who are going to give classes, they have to do a lot of work. They need to absorb. Yes. In fact, most of the lectures I'll be doing myself, and two other personalities, Sharad Prabhuji, and I don't know if Mataji is still here.
Archana Mataji.
Ashira Mataji is there.
No, Archana Mataji has gone on pilgrimage. She has gone to Pandharpur yesterday
Okay, all
night.
right, okay. So Ashira Mataji and Sharad Prabhuji are given a much larger proportion, but some of you others also have been given very important lessons. So you need to do your homework. You need to study on your own. I will provide the material, but I cannot spoon feed you any longer. You have well past that stage, and you have demonstrated a great deal of learning. And I trust now all of you, just like I trust Sharad Prabhuji and Archana Mati as my two arms, left and right arms. Okay. But many of you have shown great progress, and I'm hoping They will continue, and you will see the dividend, rich dividend will play in your own life if you follow my directions and the technique I developed. Okay? And that these two other devotees, Sharat Prabhuji and Archita Mataji, both are very, very well talented personalities, and you can take help from them too also. And now become familiarized the new way I'll be doing my PowerPoints now. Okay. So I depend on the rest of you to do your share of investment in terms of time and efforts. That's my humble request. And you will realize when I will be no more on this platform, I'll be no more in this world, you'll recognize the process, the technique I've given you, how to absorb the largest amount of Shastric material in the shortest period of time, and how to present it to others who are not at that level, and how to bring them onto the platform, the height to which all of you are now find yourself. Okay. Any comments? So it's a technique. No brute force is useful. Anything and everything what I'm doing is there's a technique, and anybody can learn it, provided you invest your own time and efforts. As you know how much time and efforts I'm doing it. 16, 18 hours, 7 days a week, and all these years. And you will develop a very close relationship with the Supreme Lord. Basically, He's dictating me. I'm nowhere. Unless He dictates me, I couldn't have done all this thing which I have been doing. And you think it's so wonderful aspect I'm doing. I'm not doing. The whole ideas come being given to me, and it doesn't come when I want it. That's why I have to spend more and more time. At certain time and sometimes I recognize that he infuses that knowledge and ideas gives within my mind, and my fingers keep typing it mechanically. The ideas develop, but it has done a great thing because I'm in a critical phase of writing my thesis. All these wonderful ideas kept coming in the last few months when I've been doing this Govinda Bhashya. So the Lord is doing incredible way of teaching us when we submit ourselves and total dependence on the Supreme Lord. Well, how in the world I could have done such complex philosophy and this single-handedly doing all these PowerPoints all these years? Can you imagine every day how much I must have been studying? Just think about it. So this is that the relationship, personal relationship you develop with the Lord only when you show that kind of dedication and absolute dependence on Sri Krishna. Then He gives us. I'm the living example of that. That's how in the world at this age I could be doing this, all these things, physical, intellectual elements that is required, absolutely required in doing this job. In my PowerPoints, even when I'm gone, it'll play a very significant role if I manage to publish it. And I need all help from all of you. There are thousands and thousands of PowerPoints. Hare Krishna. So are you with me, all of you?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
We are with you, Prabhuji.
So I need a greater input from all of you, all right? And I'm going to still experimenting to what degree I'm going to elaborate each of the sutras. Some sutras will be going to be like just like bullet points. Some sutras where deep philosophy is involved, that I will be more descriptive. Okay, but I have to draw some balance in between. I'm forced to do it because of the given limitations. Just 48 lessons, and lessons are no more than an hour, because that recap session is equally important also. All of you must recognize that. That's how we really influence the general participants. The way they are interacting in this recap sessions, you can see that how much they get motivated. And now you are the one going to have to play a role, which I have done that for all of you. Now you have to do that kind of role, okay? And more attract more people. But the degree of dedication, sacrifice, all these things are absolutely required. And you'll become much closer and closer every day with the Supreme Lord. Your bhakti will become stronger. Okay, I think it's way past time now. We need to conclude the class. Raksha Mataji, can you do the Darshan prayer, please? We'll
Prabhuji,
continue.
Yes, Prabhu.
We'll
I
continue
am
this
doing.
discussion, all right? Yeah, go ahead, Raksha Mataji.
Mataji, today Harsha Mataji would want to do the prayers.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
sure,
yes,
sure. Yeah.
Mataji. Sure, Harsha Mataji, please do.
Hare Krishna. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Prahlad Hiranyakashipurvaksha Hiranyakashipurvaksha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Parito Narsimha Ito Narsimha Parito Narsimha Narsimhadim Sharanam Prapade Narsimhadim Sharanam Prapade Tavakala Kamalavare Nakham Adbhuta Shringam. Sorry, I forgot.
Somebody going to help us?
Keshavadrita.
Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlad Laddaini Prahlad Laddaini Hiranyakashipurvaksha Hiranyakashipurvaksha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Parito Narsimha Ito Narsimha Parito Narsimha Narsimhadim Sharanam Prapade Narsimhadim Sharanam Prapade Tavakal Kamalvari Nakham Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubhringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hari Jaya Jagadish Hari तव कल्लकमलवरी नखम् अद्भुतशृङ्गम् दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गम् केशवद्रीटा नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरि जयो जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय सिंहदेव जय जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज या प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव नरसिंह भगवान देव की जय भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की जय चंद्र भाई की जय शरद प्रभु की जय संजीव प्रभु की जय assemble all devotees माता जी's and प्रभु जी's की जय please bless me thank you
Wonderful,
Hare
Varsha.
Krishna
Wonderful,
Hare
wonderful,
Krishna
Varsha. Beautiful.
thank you very
Thank you.
much Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram
Ram,
Hare Ram
Ram,
Ram
Ram,
Ram
Ram.
Hare Hare bless
Jai
me
Shri Ram.
Chandra bhai. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. It's time. So we'll meet next. Tomorrow we are meeting, right?
Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.